It is National Budget Reading Day, and we are so excited to be here as Good Morning Uganda, and I hope the viewer out there is excited as we are.
Well, I do hope the viewer is excited. There is so much conversation that we will have today regarding the reading of the national budget and, of course, the performance of the budget that is still ongoing, that is going to expire on the 30th of June 2024. Good morning, Chirabo.
Good morning to you and our viewers. I must say, Chantal looks so smart this morning. Not that all of us are not smart, but you know, when you flashed her like this, I was like, girl, you've nailed it.
Oh, yes.
Nailed it. No wonder Sonko is very excited being so next to you. But away from that, you talked about members of parliament. For me, every time we're having new entrants into parliament, I'm always worried of the quality. Some of us who have lived longer and were able, though we were still young by then, to look at the breed we had in the Constituency Assembly, the CA. Those people who are different breed compared to the breed we are having today, compared to some of those we are having today. You know, the word honorable. Honorable. Even if he came for a function, you would understand that Honorable Mutesasira has arrived.
That's right.
The likes of Victoria Mwaka. You know, when we look at then, the people, some of the leaders of opposition that have come, Dr. Latigo, you know, mention. But these days, I don't know if the problem is with Ugandans who are voting, that sometimes people get the leaders they deserve. But I think we need to up our game on who becomes a member of parliament. Also look at integrity, not just money, not just having completed some educational level. But I want to quickly come back to today, the budget reading. It's a throwback Thursday.
Yes.
Now I'm throwing back to those days when they were reading the budget. The entire country, everybody would be on the radio to listen. What have they reduced? What have they increased? You know, the budget was not this way where it's a whole process that people are aware. But then also the budget would speak out clearly that maybe a kilo of sugar, this amount has been added. So it was very easy for the ordinary person to understand. And they were very excited waiting for that day. But today, I don't know if it's just the media not doing so much of or the fact that now it's a process, people get to know what is in even before the reading. But that excitement perished.
No, it's not just the media, and someone will say that, Olive, you're speaking because you're in the media, but that's not the case. Reports have indicated that there is only 15% involvement for Ugandans in the budget process. And of course, it's not us, the media, that bring people into the budget process. The government is not doing enough to include Mwananchi into the budget conversation, and that's where the problem is. So today you just go to buy a kilo of sugar, a kilo of beans, and you find that the price you knew last week is different from the price you have this week. So more Ugandans, and the government needs to do more to ensure that Ugandans are involved in the budgeting process. Well, good morning, the lady who looks beautiful today.
Good morning, Olive. How are you?
I'm great. Actually, the cameras are not doing you justice. That outfit is lit.
I'm sending an email to the procurement committee of UBC. Well, good morning, our viewers. And today, as we are throwing back, I was looking back at the days, like you mentioned, the days when we had less members of parliament. I'm a believer of you would rather have, this is not about a bag, but you'd rather have one very durable and efficient bag, a very high quality handbag or whichever bag you have, than have very many that are not serving what one bag does. It's not about a bag. I'm talking about quality over quantity, and that is a question that, well, that is a conversation we will have until the cows come home. Yeah.
Well, till the chicken come to roost. That is what we are having this morning. Anyway, when I look at everything happening around, Chantal, and I like that you use the analogy of a bag, I'll use the analogy of shoes. You know, as women, we love shoes. And in most cases, many women will have like 30 pairs of shoes, but poor quality pairs.
Right.
And someone says, how do you work so hard only for you to give yourself a pair of fake Chinese shoes? Are we, as the electorate, voting people? I don't want to use the word fake, but are we as the electorate so blindsided? Are we too blind that we vote for people that are now coming out with corruption charges against them? I can't get past this, Robert. I can't get past the fact that three
That there
members
is
of
lack
parliament...
of civic education, lack of voter education. Now, when these two combine and are high poverty levels,
That point there, right
no?
there.
High poverty levels. Because you see, I want to sound polite. When you're poor, most extremely poor, you're easily exploited. Now, this is why you find that a person, when someone goes to them to seek for votes, their concern is not what you're going to do, but they want to know, how am I surviving the next day?
That's
So
right.
if someone can give them 10,000, they'll just tell them, I've already given you my vote.
But besides the voter, by the way, we also need to look at the quality of those who stand up for these positions.
Okay.
You see, before we even blame the voters for casting their vote, you do realize that even if you look back at the numbers of people who are, contesting for the positions, the difference in their quality is not even, is not far apart.
Why does that leave
What's the
electoral
difference,
body?
Jerome?
So that means it is a conversation we really need to open up on why are people getting into these positions, first of all.
So
The
why
answer
are
is
you
simple,
leaving
so
the
you
Electoral
know,
Commission?
I think the answer is very simple.
Yes.
Commercialization of politics. That now, being a member of parliament, let's call us
Is more profitable than owning a business.
You know, if any of us became a member of parliament, we all know in the very few in just few years, if you know how to
A few
plan very well.
years, Chirabo, it's not few years. By the other week, I'll be having my Penkoni. But
No,
that's a story for
in a
another
week
day.
that
Let's
means
get
you're-
into the
you're
news.
looting.
No, the question is, where does that leave the Electoral Commission that is supposed to ensure that whoever is on that ballot paper is up to standard? I think I'll leave that question to you, all of you on the team.
Well, this conversation just got heated, and I believe that you share some of these sentiments because we represent the views of Ugandans. Something needs to be done. But before we get to that, let Robert Nyonyintono take us through the news.
And we'll begin with issues of corruption and members of parliament. Now, the three members of parliament who were arrested by security operatives on allegations of corruption offences were finally paraded in court to answer charges that led to their arrest. The three members of parliament include Yusuf Mutembule, member of parliament for Bunyole West, Paul Akamba, member of parliament for Busiki County constituency, and Sise Namuju, woman member of parliament for Rengo district. The three from Criminal Intelligence Department were taken to the anti-corruption court under tight security at around 3:30 p.m. Members of parliament who were first sent to court cells, they were paraded in court before Chief Magistrate Joan Achiro for plea. In court, full to capacity with relatives and friends to the accused, court charged them with one count of corruption contrary to Section 2A and 26 of the Anti-Corruption Act of 2009 as amended. Due to fear, the accurate pleaded guilty of the offences, however, changed their plea to not guilty. The member of parliament, Sise Namuju, and Paul Akamba pleaded not guilty too. Prosecution led by Nicholas Kawoya highlighted to court that the ongoing inquiries into the offences against the accused, which are nearly completion, for need to have a temporary freedom, through their lawyer, they asked court to be granted bail, but each presenting 2 to 3 sureties. The presented sureties included Mutiwa Godfrey, MP for Bunyore West, Namu Kose Misa, Community Development Officer, Mukono Municipality. Sureties for accused included also Yusuf Mute Mbule. Woman Member of Parliament, Namutumba District, Naigaga. Marion Kasolo Robert, MP, Ikiki, Budaka District, and Kibalia Henry, MP, Bugambula County, for Paul Akamba. These who stood surety for Sise Namujua, Setanyi Muhammad, MP, Bukoto County, Haj Hassan Burada, owner Burada Clinics, and Semwanga Javira, MP, Buyamba County in Rakai District. Other grounds to grant them bail were the alleged violation if their human rights during and after. Prosecution based its submission under Section 77 of the court, among other grounds, and objected to the accused bail application.
Now moving on, with the clock ticking to the budget reading, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development, Dr. Ruth Nankabira, is calling for prioritization of resource allocation to the ministries, departments, and agencies. In the new financial year, several key sectors that expected to get more resources as per their planned activities. However, that may not be the case, as Dennis Sigoa reported. The appeal for prioritization of the national budget by the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development comes in the wake of proposed budget cuts to various public entities, among them the Ministry of Energy, whose proposed budget for the fiscal year 2024-25 has been slashed by 56% across the board. According to Dr. Nankabira, certain sectors need more resources in order to ensure that the NRM manifesto is achieved within the stipulated time frame. Nankabira made the remarks on the sidelines of the National Stakeholder Workshop on Atomic Energy Bill 2024. The bill seeks to put in place a sound and conducive environment for development of nuclear energy in a safe, secure, and sustainable manner. The growing energy demand and key infrastructure developments have necessitated the government to develop all the available electricity generation potential. Uganda is currently just over 2,000 megawatts. However, this capacity is still below the desired 52,481 megawatts required to achieve the target for Uganda Vision 2040.
And moving on, the leader of opposition in Parliament, Joe Senyonyi, has accused the Parliamentary Commission of holding meetings without his participation. Senyonyi said the Commission quietly approved the estimates of revenue and expenditure for Parliament for the next financial year without his knowledge. LOP wants the ongoing investigations on corruption extended to the Parliamentary Commission and ensure proper accountability of the funds approved. While addressing the media yesterday, the leader of opposition publicly showed a letter he had written to the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Amongi, questioning the operation of the Parliamentary Commission. Senyonyi, a member of the Parliamentary Commission, has continued to accuse the Commission for holding sittings without his participation. The outcry by Senyonyi started way back after Parliamentary Commission allegedly sought and negotiated service awards for certain members who had served in the previous half of the 11th Parliament. When reached out, the Director for Communication at Parliament, Chris Obole responded. LOP wants the ongoing investigations spearheaded by police on the allegations of corruption at Parliament to be extended to Parliamentary Commission to unearth the darkness. Since President Yoweri Museveni ordered for investigations into the Ministry of Finance and Parliament, 3 MPs have been netted and are facing charges on corruption.
Now, focusing on matters children, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development has revealed plans of integrating information about child labour in the education curriculum to create awareness to learners about this kind of child exploitation. While officiating at the commemoration of the World Day Against Child Labour at Mestil Hotel in Kampala, State Minister for Children and Youth in the Ministry of Gender, Balam Bargahara, said government is to construct more schools to provide free education. Uganda has joined the rest of the world to celebrate the Day of the Fight Against Child Labour. This day comes at a time when over 6.2 million children aged between 5 to 17 years are in child labour. However, government, together with development partners, have picked a number of children who are involved in child labour from the streets back to school as one of the initiatives to fight the vice. The Minister of State for Gender in charge of children and youth, Balam Bargahara, pledged to construct more schools to give free education to Ugandan children. The representatives of civil society organizations of Uganda, Executive Director and PACAN Ugandan chapter Ignatius Nuoha, said that CSOs are working with lawmakers to regulate engaging children in different types of work. The country director, Human Institute for Development Corporation, Wajega Juliet, said that they are working together with the government and international labor organizations to find solutions for the children that have been found to be victims of child labor. The Day of the Fight Against Child Labour is being commemorated under the theme, "Let us act now on outcomes, commitments, and end child labour." Well, that does it for local news. Now, in the last 24 hours, a lot has happened around the world, and Chantal Olive Kaninda takes us through that.
Well, globally, let's take a look at what is happening, starting with the Hamas and Israel war, where the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has told Hamas that it is time for the haggling to stop after its leaders proposed numerous changes to a plan for a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal. He told reporters in Doha that some of the changes were workable and others were not, but that the U.S. and mediators, Qatar and Egypt, would try close this deal. Hamas said on Tuesday that it was ready to deal positively with the process, but stressed the need for Israel to agree to a permanent ceasefire and full withdrawal from Gaza. The Israeli government did not comment, but an anonymous official said the Palestinian armed group's response amounted to a rejection. Israel's prime minister has not yet publicly endorsed the proposal, which U.S. President Joe Biden said had been offered by the country when he outlined it 12 days ago. But Mr. Blinken said Benjamin Netanyahu had reaffirmed his commitment during a meeting in Jerusalem on Monday. The UN Secretary Council has passed a resolution supporting the proposal that day, adding to the diplomatic pressure that Washington is exerting. Now, moving on to accommodation options for this week's G7 summit in the southern Italian region of Puglia have been on show. One, a sumptuous resort of Bougainville-clad villas and private pools, where Madonna and Beckham's have holidayed, where the singer Justin Timberlake and actress Jessica got married. The other, a giant ship moored off the coast of Brindisi, full of water leaks and broken air conditioning units, spewing dirt into bedsheets. The first, the Palacio Borgo Ignazia, is housing the leaders of the world's largest advanced economies, from Joe Biden to Emmanuel Macron and Rishi Sunak to Justin Trudeau. The second was brought in to accommodate the 2,600 police officers providing security. It was denounced by the unions as having inhuman conditions resembling those of ancient slave ships. Reported to have cost the Italian government 6 million euros, it's now been impounded with a fraud investigation underway. Two faces of Italy, the Sublime and the Shoddy. Now back to Africa. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu slipped and fell over at an official event to mark 25 years of democracy in the country. The president, 72, fell as he climbed the steps on a vehicle which was supposed to take him around Eagle Square in the capital, Abuja. He had to be helped back up on his feet. One of his aides described it as a mild misstep and said the president had been able to continue with the rest of the program. He immediately went on with the ceremonial rounds. No issues, wrote presidential aide Dada Olusegun on X. Mr. Tinubu's closest challenger during last year's election, Atiku Abubakar, expressed his sympathy. I sincerely sympathize with President Bola Tinubu over this unfortunate incident as he was set to review the parade on Democracy Day. I do hope that all is well with him, he wrote on X. Popular politician and activist Shehu Sani said it was no big deal and that the incident showed the president is no different to anyone else. Not just President Tinubu, anyone alive can trip and fall. It happened to President Biden and Fidel Castro. Presidents are human beings and mortals. Well, looks like some grace is being extended to the Nigerian president. Now, lastly, matters climate. 8 apparent climate protesters were arrested after storming the field at the annual congressional baseball game Wednesday night and hit with federal charges, U.S. Capitol Police confirmed. The group Climate Defiance took credit for the action on X, formerly Twitter, writing that all 8 were taken into custody and were behind bars just after 9 p.m. We are not here to watch Congress play games while the planet burns to ash and subsidies add fuel to the fire, the group wrote. We are here to disrupt and shut down fossil fuel businesses as usual. Congress sends billions of public dollars to subsidize deadly fossil fuels, but the police are tackling us instead, they added, along with a video of officers tackling the group after they jumped onto the field at Nationals Park. And that leads us to the end of our international news and climate news.
For us in the dailies.
Well, the New Vision is highlighting corruption. Members of Parliament charged and remanded. And at the front page, you will see the 3 members of Parliament. One is still smiling. I don't know why, but the legislators are likely to face 10-year imprisonment. Then a script of the budget 2024-2025, how you can benefit as a Ugandan. There's a breakdown of the PDM allocations, a myoga at the front page of the New Vision, as well as the elderly and persons with disabilities and how they will benefit from this year's budget. Then elephants call each other by name, according to the New Vision today. Which elephants are those? Find more details in today's New Vision. Now, put teachers on contract, government has been told. Will that be done? We wait to see. Then family series, how the Bamgemereires have kept the flame alive for 30 years. And then crime, former Mulago boss rearrested over graft. That is also the New Vision this Thursday. Now, the Daily Monitor Budget Day, members of Parliament scared of arrests. Sources say panic has been fueled in part by confirmation that dozens of security and intelligence chiefs, among them AIGP Tom Magambo, Police's Director of Criminal Investigations, who's leading ongoing inquiries, will attend today's budget reading at Kololo Ceremonial Grounds. Then 45,000 newborns die in Uganda annually, according to a report by experts. Then other stories, joy as Bugala Island is connected to power grid. Then Koboko on alert over yellow fever. Then budget 2024-2025, how your money will be spent by the government. Away from that, we head to Kenya. Ruto faces Mount Kenya. The 6.8 billion shillings debts owed by coffee farmers have been written off, according to the Daily Nation. Then legislation bill wants SRC boss hired on part-time basis. Then in the US polls, Trump eyes TikTok to woo young male voters. Education, carpet threatens to sue TSC over sacked junior secondary teachers. Then pass punitive tax bill without changes, says according to what the Kenyans are demanding, the members of parliament. Then lastly, the Citizen newspaper, how the 2024-2025 budget can have the desired impact on the Tanzanian people. SGR services to commence tomorrow as in the National Advice ICT and Youth Potential Key in Vision 2050 endeavor. That is for Tanzania. That and more is what the press is highlighting this morning at the front pages.
Very interesting report there on the Daily Monitor front page. Today is going to be an interesting day as the budget is read. Jerome Paul, do you think the members of parliament will show up, all of them?
No, I think those coming in from the NRM government, or rather the NRM party, will definitely be present, and those from the independent side of things. It's only those from the opposition who revealed that they would not show up during the budget reading, just like they did during the State of the Nation address.
But who is afraid of being arrested? Which of these members of parliament?
I think quite a number of them are being already scared, because 3 have already been remanded. So you can only start getting worried. More so if you were part of the budget committee. I choose to speak.
Okay. All right. Well, back in the 90s, her name was a household name in Uganda. That is Yvonne Chaka Chaka. And since today we are in the spirit of throwing back, Umkomboti is here for you.
Live.
I know Robert Chirabo has his own. The same applies to Chantal, Olive Akandinda, and Jerome Paul Sonko. Good morning, Jerome Paul.
Good morning to you, and good morning to our dear viewer. Chantal and I have been shocked by your opener, but of course we fully relate to what you've put across. You know, these days we are really having a huge number of representatives in Parliament, about 500. And the truth is, for the media, it becomes even difficult, more so when you're trying to report in the field and you're trying to capture or remember a name of the Member of Parliament. At times you have to even ask them, what is your name and which constituency are you representing?
And then they will be offended.
And you know, this is actually coming out respectfully. Back in the time, like you've mentioned, we could know a Member of Parliament, you know, by just a look at his face or her face, because there were very few. Yes, primary. And we could easily, someone could ask you who is, you know, the Member of Parliament of Mukono. You would definitely know Honorable Betty Namboze Bachireke. Now I don't even know how many we have in there. Exactly. So, you know, when you look at how things have changed in the past 15, 20 years in Uganda, you just sit back and say, well, I hope it is for the better. But nonetheless, here we are. It is National Budget Reading Day, and we are so excited to be here as Good Morning Uganda. And I hope the viewer out there is excited as we are.
Well, I do hope the viewer is excited. There is so much conversation that we will have today regarding the reading of the national budget and, of course, the performance of the budget that is still ongoing, that is going to expire on the 30th of June 2024. Good morning, Chirabo.
Good morning to you and our viewers. I must say, Chantal looks so smart this morning. Not that all of us are not smart, but you know, when you flashed her like this, I was like, girl, you've nailed it.
Oh, yes.
Nailed it. No wonder Sonko is very excited being so next to you. But away from that, you talked about members of parliament. For me, every time we're having new entrants into parliament, I'm always worried of the quality. Some of us who have lived longer and were able, though we were still young by then, to look at the breed we had in the Constituency Assembly, the CA. Those people who are different breed compared to the breed we are having today, compared to some of those we are having today. You know, the word honorable.
Honorable.
Even if he came for a function, you would understand that Honorable Mutesa Asira has arrived.
That's right.
The likes of Victoria Mwaka. You know, when we look at then, the people, some of the leaders of opposition that have come, Dr. Latigo, you know, mention, But these days, I don't know if the problem is with Ugandans who are voting, that sometimes people get the leaders they deserve. But I think we need to up our game on who becomes a member of parliament. Also look at integrity, not just money, not just having completed some educational level. But I want to quickly come back to today, the budget reading. It's a throwback Thursday.
Yes.
Now I'm throwing back to those days when they were reading the budget. The entire country, everybody would be on the radio to listen. What have they reduced? What have they increased? You know, the budget was not this way where it's a whole process that people are aware. But then also the budget would speak out clearly that maybe a kilo of sugar, this amount has been added. So it was very easy for the ordinary person to understand. And they were very excited waiting for that day. But today, I don't know if it's just the media not doing so much of or the fact that now it's a process, people get to know what is in even before the reading, but that excitement perished.
No, it's not just the media, and someone will say that, Olive, you're speaking because you're in the media, but that's not the case. Reports have indicated that there is only 15% involvement for Ugandans in the budget process. And of course, it's not us, the media, that bring people into the budget process. The government is not doing enough to include Mwananchi into the budget conversation, and that's where the problem is. So today you just go to buy a kilo of sugar, a kilo of beans, and you find that the price you knew last week is different from the price you have this week. So more Ugandans, and the government needs to do more to ensure that Ugandans are involved in the budgeting process. Well, good morning, the lady who looks beautiful today.
Good morning, Olive. How are you?
I'm great. Actually, the cameras are not doing you justice. That outfit is lit.
I'm sending an email to the procurement committee of UBC. Well, good morning, our viewers, and today as we are throwing back, as looking back at the days, like you mentioned, the days when we had less members of parliament. I'm a believer of, you would rather have, this is not about a bag, but you'd rather have one very durable and efficient bag, a very high quality handbag or whichever bag you have, than have very many that are not serving what one bag does. It's not about a bag. I'm talking about quality over quantity, and that is a question that, well, that is a conversation we will have until the cows come home. Yeah. Well,
till the chicken come to roost. That is what we are having this morning. Anyway, when I look at everything happening around, Chantal, and I like that you use the analogy of a bag, I'll use the analogy of shoes. You know, as women, we love shoes. And in most cases, many women will have like 30 pairs of shoes, but poor quality pairs. Right. And someone says, how do you work so hard only for you to give yourself a pair of fake Chinese shoes? Are we, as the electorate, voting people? I don't want to use the word fake, but are we as the electorate so blindsided? Are we too blind that we vote for people that are now coming out with corruption charges against them? I can't get past this, Robert. I can't get past the fact that three members of parliament...
of civic education, lack of voter education. Now, when these two combine and are high poverty levels,
that point there, right?
Of the parish development model, PDM.
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia, it is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Joko, I thought I was one of your friends.
You are,
but you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief, and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala,
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Today, the financial budget for the year 2024-2025 will be launched at Kololo Independence Grounds. Many Ugandans, especially in the business community, are waiting for the reading of the budget with bated breath. And also they have questions. How is the 72 trillion budget going to be funded? These are the questions that we await to be answered. We understand that 32.3 trillion will be generated through revenue collection. But who is paying these taxes? Is it the business community? Is it you and I that are in employment? How exactly are we going to ensure that we can collect over 32.3 trillion Uganda shillings? And also in the same budget, 1.3 trillion is supposed to be from external sources and 8.9 trillion from internal borrowers. And the budget is also includes 19.8 trillion for domestic debt refinancing and 9.5 trillion for project support through grants and loans. So basically, we have a budget that we cannot finance. We have a budget that is basically 45% dependent on the private sector and also on borrowing. This is the conversation we are having in our newsreel. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, together with Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono, Chantal Olive Akandinda, and Jerome Paul Sonko. I'll start with you, Chirabo. What is your overall perspective of the budget 2024-2025?
First, I want to say continuously or consecutively, we've had our budgets increase.
Yes.
One would say, yes, there's population increase, therefore, maybe if you have more people in your house, then you have to spend more. But the big question also is, do we have what it takes for you to be able to set your expectations that high? Because when you look at the trends of our budget and how it's been increasing, sometimes during COVID-19, His Excellency said, let's learn to live a frugal way, something like that.
That's right.
I would expect that we would have looked at certain areas where we can cut and have a lesser budget. Because, believe you me, the economy is not doing that very well. The business community, Ugandans are struggling to meet their tax obligations. I'll just give you one tax. Property tax. For people who have houses. Property tax. Now there is rental income tax. You pay property tax. For example, some of us were in Insanji. Yeah, that is to the sub-county, but URA will come for rental income tax. Now, tax is something they get from profits. You know, like rental income tax, they'll look at your gross, then they'll take that cut 12%. But you've also paid some tax already in property tax. Now, to a layman, it may be hard for them to understand that you have to pay all this tax. And much as we are saying that we are expecting so much from our donors, so much from, call them development partners, it becomes very tricky on how we are going to raise this money and have the budget we are planning for that is going to be read today. So for me, this continuous increase of our budgets and with huge percentages in increase is something that is worrying me. You come from about 50 something, then you're moving to 70. We are talking of trillions. I think that is something that first of all worries me. That huge gap in increment.
In increment. And
yeah, the percentages, if you're to go down and say, if you're coming from 50 and you're heading to 70.
And also, please note, the official budget that was presented for the financial year 2023-24 was 52 trillion.
Yes.
But it ended up in 60 due to the supplementary budgets. Even this one, at first, when they presented a rough copy earlier in March, it was about 58, 60, around 58, 60. 62, and now it is at 72. So because still over the supplementary budgets that have been put into the budget. And also it is the budget estimates allocate that the largest portions are to go to external debt repayments, which require 3.1 trillion, and then project support through loans and grants, which will receive 9.5 trillion. Going to Studio B, where my colleagues Sonko and Chantal are, what are the key priorities outlined in the budget? And how do they align with the needs of Ugandans? Because at the end of the day, the budget is for us.
We are running under the theme which has taken us for the third year.
Yes.
And this year's theme is looking at full monetization of the Ugandan economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation, and market access. Now, this is the third year that we are still looking into driving the budget priorities through the same. Now, when you look at the priorities, of course, when you look at full monetization of the Ugandan economy, this brings us to one of the key priorities that has been there for the past 2 financial years, which is human capital development, which of course I look at deeply as something that is a very good move, or something that the government thought about so well. And of course, when it comes to, you know, how we roll out some of these programs and initiatives, at the end of the day, they are well planned. But the issue goes down to the implementation bit of it. Now, when it comes to human capital development, which is one of the priorities for this financial year, you do look back at some of the government projects or initiatives that have been put in place, EMYOGA and PDM, where most of the money is going to go to. And this time around, even persons with disability and also the elderly have been highly prioritized, because over the years they've been having issues that their money does not reach in time or on time, and then at times they find that maybe some of them feel maybe the government forgot about them. Now, when it comes to the implementation bit, this is where I have my issues when it comes to some of the priority sectors that we have in our budget. Human capital development is looking at empowering households to ensure that every Ugandan, the 39% of the Ugandan population, taps into the money economy. Now, going back to the human capital development, this means we have to create room for industrialization, which is also part of the theme. Now, also looking at commercial agriculture, because many of the households in the country, according to what we've been having in the reports, is that many focus more on agriculture, because this has over the years been looked at as the backbone of the economy. However much it's quite debatable now. But when you look at the households that we have in the country that are in the agriculture value chain, many of them are still doing subsistence farming, which means there is no growth within the communities or within the population. If at all the population is not willing to seek out for monetizing any act or monetizing any sort of social activity that they are doing amongst themselves, then that means we are not doing enough. So I want to believe that when you look at priorities like, before we even look into the security and health, human capital development really needs to be fully looked into, because by empowering the population, you are then going to give the chance for the economy to grow. How? When you're setting up the industries and you're having Ugandans employed, because the majority of the young people are unemployed, then you're definitely going to have enough taxes to collect. Besides that, if you also empower the population in many ways, you're going to have more businesses coming up. That means these businesses are likely to pay and you will collect more taxes. That means at the end of the day, the 31 trillion that is supposed to come in from domestic tax mobilization is going to be a reality.
Well, Chantal, now I would like to come to you. We know that there are many issues regarding poverty and inequality in the country. And with this budget reading today, how do you think it's going to address these issues?
Well, there is a hope. There is a hope that, because usually what happens is we have all these good conversations, and we've clearly studied it over and over again. We have these good conversations, we have these allocations that to some sectors are fair, to some are not. But after that, the conversation now goes to the part of implementation. And I believe that is where we need to put our focus. After we've had the budget reading, the focus now should be on how are we implementing the plans that we have put forward as a country. Okay.
Now, matters of education, Chiravo, they are very key. I believe priority areas are security, education, household income, and of course, revenue mobilization. So when it comes to education, are you comfortable with what has been allocated to the education sector?
Well, this budget is very tricky, I must say. It looks so rosy.
Rosy, but the money is not even there.
When you look at exactly how much are we giving, my young brother Sonko was talking about human capital development, and I just want to break it down. When you talk about this word human capital development, what are we referring to now? Human capital development is to receive 9.9 trillion. It is going to take 26.3% of the budget for investment in education, health, and skills development. What Sonko was talking about, empowering the youth. We have the presidential initiative. We've seen some good work. Youth now have some small businesses, and others are empowered with some capital, and they have expanded. But still, that is at a slow pace. Now, you asked Chantal about inequalities.
Yes, poverty. And
poverty. Now, one thing in this budget you must note, there's something we call social protection. Now, government has been giving money in this area to some extent. Now, here, this time, we are seeing huge cuts. For example, if you're talking about fighting these inequalities, we've been having the social assistance grant for empowering, the SAGE program, if I may call it now. SAGE previously, because I want to look at all these sectors, I want to be very fast, that we've just discussed, if you are to look at priorities. Now, SAGE initially, government, for the last 3 years, has been putting about 121.220 allocation, the money they have been giving. Now, this money is the money we usually joke about that government gives to the elder persons 80 years and above. They get it quarterly, at least they get 75,000. Now, we've been having about 3,759 older persons on this program, where government has been allocating some money. Now, this time around, when we go to social protection, this time around, we are having about 55,772 older persons who are going to miss out because they have cut their money. Now, if you're looking at social protection, people who've become of age, we are going to have about 55,000 miss, because according to the allocation, these people will not be able to get their money. Now, when you go to the education sector, the allocation, you're going to find that a number of this amount is going to structures.
Because actually in the news earlier, the minister of the state minister for gender in charge of youth and children said, we are going to construct more schools. So when you talk about structures, is this what you mean?
Yes, building.
Yes.
Building, which is good. But I want to tell you, where have we had teacher recruitment?
Salaries.
Where have we had staffing these schools? Because I believe that much as the children in villages, and we have a gap of those in the urban, they're equally bright. It's exposure. It is quality of teachers that are given to them. So education may not only mean good buildings. However, I must be quick to say that yes, learning under a conducive environment
is very important.
It's very important, away from trees, away from a classroom where some P3 is facing this side and P4 is facing this side, and they are all learning. But that doesn't put the nail. We need the last nail in the coffin to cause the transformation.
And this nail is?
And this nail is quality teachers.
Yes.
This nail is government's contribution to how much they give per child in universal primary education. When you have a budget and you're not saying that this year government is increasing its funding per child, if we go to statistics, every child in UPE, how much is government contributing a year? It is not even 50,000.
And Robert, please note that Uganda operates, since time immemorial, by the way, Uganda operates on what we call a deficit budget.
Yes.
And also on top of that, when you look at even just the revenue collected, let's say, for example, as anticipated from last year, the revenue we're supposed to collect was about, it should have been about 28.8, around 28.8 trillion Uganda shillings. But even that cannot take us as far as we want to go. So I think I'll agree with you that it seems all too rosy. It needs to be looked further
And
into.
Speaking about rosy, it shows that Parliament also appropriated 3 billion shillings to Joakali enterprises to transition them into formal economy. Now, one would wonder, is this what is this? And I'm still with you, Chantal. Do you see this being the beacon of light that we need for economic development, or it is just too rosy because even the money is not there?
I would say it is too rosy because, one, there is also the fact that even the money that we have been getting, say in terms of grants and donations, have been cut to loans. We would be getting them as loans. So what does that mean? It implies that we are likely to get into more debt, yet we are already indebted beyond capacity, beyond which we are supposed to be indebted as a country. So that means that I wouldn't say that this is going to be as effective. It still looks too rosy to be true.
But now, Jerome Paul, when you look at the fact that 85.9 billion has been appropriated for the capitalization of the Uganda Development Bank, isn't this where businesses come in? Isn't this where maybe Ugandan businesses and SMEs may benefit, because this money is supposed to be given to them as loans?
Yes, obviously, this is that is why they are going to capitalize the UDB, is to make loans accessible. Again, the issue we are having today is that many businesses are collapsing because they do not have a pullback position. And the only available pullback position has always been the commercial banks, which have high interest rates. And at the end of it all, you also get to see that, well, the government has been very intentional with this, because at least you're giving a small business owner the chance to access some few loans from a government-aided body, if I'm to put it in that way. But of course, when you look at it from the level of how accessible are these loans, then that is where the bigger question is. Because,
the other question, please.
Because when you look at how accessible these loans are, it again leaves many questions that need answers. Because some of the businesses who also run to the Uganda Development Bank will tell you that at times, you know, the processes you pass through to acquire some of these loans become a little bit harder. And then they end up going or rushing to the commercial banks, because the commercial banks make it easier, but at times it is always the interest rates that make it a bit difficult for them to stay afloat.
And to add on to that, we are operating on a large, or the biggest percentage of our sector is informal. Yeah, and that now leads us to the question of, do we have the tax base that is going to give us the kind of taxes we would be looking at? That leads us to the question of how many SMEs are going to have access to that money from the Uganda Development Bank. If you are telling me that our economy is largely informal, and you're also telling me that we're supposed to be collecting taxes.
It's largely informal and also dependent on the private sector.
Thank you. And then you're telling me that we're supposed to be collecting taxes from things like corporation tax, income tax, value-added tax, among others. But then again, you look at the informal sector, and which of those are the taxes we're going to be collecting from them. It also leaves us with the question of, are we going to be able?
That's what I said earlier.
And it also brings into question.
I think that's what I said earlier, that this budget is very, very good.
On paper.
But if we are to dissect its practicability, because when you hear that government has capitalized Uganda Development Bank, and its government says there is money there, that is good, but we've always been speaking to the business community. I happen to be on a WhatsApp forum for the Kasita people.
Yes.
And when you hear what they're saying about the monies there, Chantal brought out a very good point, that you see, the technocrats must come down and understand who are the people they are dealing with. It would be better to pass money if Kasita is organized through them.
Instead of UDB.
Because for them...
But is Kasita organized?
No, I'm saying because you understand who do you want to target.
Yes.
And how best are you going to target. Because at the end of the day, remember when we were coming from COVID, when government put around 100 billion for traders to go and get that money, it was a shock they never, and people who were bigger companies took advantage of that.
That's right.
Now, when you have, for you to get a loan from Uganda Development Bank, there are requirements that these ordinary Ugandans may not have because of the nature of how they do their business. You find a person running a business who has no tin. They're not even they will find our tax base is still
with the way
little.
URA has streamlined its systems,
But
is there
still,
someone running a business without a tin? I'm not talking about a hawker or
not
street
a hawker.
vendor. Yeah.
I want to tell you, you can go to many of these huge retail shops.
Yes.
And for them, they buy their things, they bring, they sell. So URA still has to broaden the tax base. And why is it failing? Because there are many people, if you have a radar to trace, like they look for planes, you'll find it very hard to trace them to be able to pop and get tax from them. So the budget is good, but if we don't look at these technicalities, I wish I could meet technocrats and tell them, if we are planning, how do we get the exact people we are planning for? That's why I praise some initiatives, like skilling the girl child.
Yes.
Through President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Because for it is clear, they understood. We have girls that got pregnant when they were young. They didn't go to school. What can we give them? Teach them tailoring, bakery. We have young boys, teach them welding, carpentry, this and this. Then give them startup capital.
After you have trained them.
Because the president and the people who are behind this thought clearly, how do we meet this problem? They would have said, let's set up an institution. But they knew a woman will move on the village or secretary for women, identify these girls, they begin training, then they are given money. That was a right bullet. It hit the right spot. But when you want to recapitalize, when you're looking at human capital, and you're looking at giving the business community, and the method of channeling money is not that friendly and easily accessible to them. At the end of the day, it is on record, according to Private Sector Foundation of Uganda, that many of the businesses that open in Uganda do not live to see their first birthday. So these remain challenges.
And I'll take those as your last thoughts. Chantal, your last thoughts.
Well, my last thoughts would go to, we need to first understand the kind of budget we are operating and the economy within which we are operating. Please do note, we also have a very narrow tax base. And just previously, out of about 45 million Ugandans, only 2.8 million Ugandans could pay taxes. So the question is, how are we going to raise the money to be able to fund this rosy budget of ours? Are we going to again borrow to pay and
Yes,
then
we are.
borrow again?
Yes,
We're
we are
going to
borrowing.
borrow.
And then-
I'm giving you the cycle.
Yes.
Borrow to pay and then borrow
Borrow to
again.
pay.
Because again-
Meaning the cycle continues and they're not
Well,
going to be
Jerome Paul,
achieving.
your last thoughts.
I'll stick to what she has been mentioning here, because when you also look at the largest portion is going to debt financing.
Yes.
And then at the end of it all, we have to borrow again to finance
To
the budget.
finance,
So it's a
yes.
continuous chain. But however, Ramadan Gobi, that is the PSST had mentioned that our debt is going to be sustainable in the next financial year, so we shouldn't worry. So we want to see how can we sustain that growing debt in the country. But nonetheless, it's a very good budget on paper, and we wait for its reading this afternoon.
I like your choice of words. It's a very good budget on paper. And of course, I see that Chantal is like, nah, I don't believe this. But anyway, that is the conversation on the budget that is going to be read today, the financial budget for the year 2024-2025. It is at 72 trillion shillings, but a big chunk of that is debt financing. And then there is about 32 trillion that is supposed to be locally collected by URA. But now, if the statistics are true, as Chantal put them, that 28% of Ugandans are the taxpayers, how many times is one Ugandan going to be taxed? That's the question I leave with you this morning. Good Morning Uganda does continue. Stick with us.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Uganda is really called the Pearl of Africa for a reason. And some of these things you get to know and appreciate the beauty that there is in the country when you explore. Ngamba Island is one of those places that will surely make you believe that Uganda is the Pearl of Africa. I am Irene Alena Misang, and this is the GMT's Express at UBC, where we take you around the Pearl of Africa, exploring different places. Now here we are exploring the chimps at Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary. These chimps, it is funny or amazing to see that they have hierarchies, just like we have the social classes. These chimps have hierarchies. They have a leader, like a president or the leader of the community, and the community at Ngamba Island is led by Chisembo. But the story how he got the leadership, there are also maybe like the likes of Mawa who now got depressed, or he isolated himself because he lost the campaigns, the votes. So you see that there is politics here. It is just amazing to see that these chimps are also like human beings and they also want leadership. Well, it is now feeding time. We are going to see how they feed, because when it is feeding time, it is also play time. Let's go do this. That is nice. Yeah. Let me see who. Now I think that one, who? Amos, the other one is in a higher class. Because when this one saw him getting the other one.
The alpha. Yes.
Hey, Chisem, I saw this one when he was getting the tomato, he left it for him.
Yeah.
Why? Take it. Natasha, you know, Chisembo, bad manners. Let me give Natasha. Natasha? Now they are all busy. Everyone has something. Maybe him.
Yeah, my name is Amos Okelo. I work as a caregiver. I love chimpanzees. I've started working with chimpanzees in 2004, and it becomes part of my daily activities. We observe these chimpanzees, we understand something about their behaviors, we write stories about them. And here I want to talk about Kisembo, who is right there. Kisembo is the alpha male, you know. The alpha is the chief executive of the group. And to be the alpha, you must really play a lot of chimpanzee politics. So to come to the highest position in the chimpanzee leadership, you must make sure that you have so many supporters, okay? So Kisembo is born of 1999. And as we speak now, Kisembo is no longer a juvenile, but the alpha. And how did he get into position? Whenever there is a gap, whenever there is a weakness, we had a previous alpha male called Omutama. So by 2018, Omutama was the alpha male. Between 2018 to 2019, there was a little bit of a gap. So the group wanted to change the leadership. So Kisembo presented himself as a candidate, and he started mobilizing with the majority of the females. He started mobilizing support from the juveniles. So he got a majority of support, and that support was enough to make him launch an attack to Omutama, who was the alpha. And there was a fight for 1 week, there was a fight for 2 weeks, when the team of Kisembo would attack the team of Omutama, who was the alpha. And then, at the end of the day, towards the end of 2019, Omutama and his allies had completely been thrashed by Kisembo and his new group. So between 2019 and 2020, Omutama had to make a decision, okay? Either to become a rebel or to go back and submit, okay? So having lost the alpha position through the fight, Omutama submitted to the new leadership, and by 2020, Kisembo had completely established himself as the alpha male. He is the alpha up to now. When you come here to know that one is an alpha, you're going to see how much food he has collected. You're going to see some of the privileges they have in terms of copulating with the females, or in terms of how they solve the group problems. So there are rules in the chimpanzee group, and then the alpha male is the judge. So whatever he does is assumed to be right. But there are lots of challenges. Just as he is now the alpha male, there are other upcoming males who also want to take over from Kisembo. So how does he establish himself into leadership?
So you see that Chisembo, the leader of this community, should make sure that he sustains his powers, or else another upcoming juvenile will be able to take up his powers. But how is he going to be able to maintain this leadership that he has? He has to be confident, he has to do different things, but it is exciting to dive into the politics of the chimps at Ngamba Island. And if you want to see chimps, there is no doubt that when you visit Ngamba Island, you must see the chimps. So just find time, get that day off, get a night off, come to Ngamba Island and explore the beautiful chimps that call this place a perfect haven. Thank you so much.
As we're getting ready for the budget reading this afternoon here in Uganda for the 2024-2025 financial year, many other sectors and ministries as well as government departments have been giving us an annual review of their performance. But not only that, others have as well given us a half-year review for this calendar year of 2024. Welcome to the GMU Business Update this morning. I am Joram Paul Sonko. Now, speaking of half-year review or half-year performances, the Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority on Tuesday morning had a press brief on the performance of the microfinance institutions, Tier 4 microfinance institutions. Now, during this press review, they gave further guidelines in regards to how many or how the different operators of the digital lending apps should work, or how you who is looking for money from these apps, the things that you need to have at the back of your mind, especially when it comes to the many growing online digital platforms that we have in the country. It has come to the notice of the Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority that we have so many growing digital money lenders, and these digital money lenders have made it a deal to take so much information from the Ugandans who are borrowing money from them. Not only that, their interest rates seem to be high. But now, did you know that before you acquire a loan from these digital money lenders, quite a number of the platforms available, you are supposed to check out their offices. You have to make sure that they have a physical office, and not only that, you have to make sure that they have a license, because some of these are operating illegally. Now let's have a review of this press release at the Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority.
Been unveiling in the last space of 5 years. Number one, recently in March 2024, we issued a digital lending guidelines. Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority issued the Tier 4 digital lending guidelines in response to public outcry over mushrooming predatory lenders. Members of the public raised concerns over several internet-based lending apps preying on unsuspecting Ugandans. The concerns range from high interest rates, lack of physical address by these digital lenders, violation of data privacy, confidentiality issues, and among others. The guidelines seek to address all those concerns. They were drafted and approved after a thorough consultative engagement with all key stakeholders. Our key stakeholders include Ministry of Finance as our supervisor of this government agency, UMRA, NITAU, which is the National Information Technology Authority, Bank of Uganda, under the National Payment Systems, NIRA, UNCDF, AMFU. AMFU is Association of Microfinance Institutions in Uganda, FSDU, Digital Lending Providers, FITSPA, etc. The overall objective of these lending guidelines is to streamline operations of digital lenders, to safeguard consumers against predatory lenders. The digital lending guidelines are now available on our website, as I've said, www.umra.go.ug. Expected all digital credit providers to cease or desist from engaging in harmful lending and loan collection practices, and are hereby directed to comply with the Tier 4 Digital Lending Guidelines, Volume 1, and related laws. UMRA will institute necessary administrative measures against any licensed institution that fails to abide by the Tier 4 Microfinance Institutions and Moneylenders Act 2016, regulations thereof 2018, and the issued digital lending guidelines. We have proposed Tier 4 lending conditions and regulations 2024 underway. The authority would also like to inform the general public that it is in the final stages of issuing Tier 4 lending conditions regulations 2024 to regulate the sector predatory challenges. UMRA has conducted consultative engagements with the sector players to address the lending conditions with an objective of restoring sanity in the Tier 4 microfinance sector.
Edith Namugatusubira, who is the substantive Executive Director of the Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority. Like I did mention, before you acquire a loan from some of these digital lending apps that are quite many on your platform, make sure that you're not supposed to give them your information, because they normally ask for the NIN, contacts, location. You have to make sure that they have a license. Then two, they should have a physical location before you give out your information, or before you go and acquire out these loans. Now, lastly, from our business news this morning, we look at the regional scene because trade between the East African countries has experienced a paltry improvement over the years, according to Angelina Ngalula, who is the chairperson of the East African Business Council. Now, at just over 15% of intra-regional trade, the East African Business Council chairperson is concerned about the region's capacity to compete favorably in the wider African Continental Free Trade Area zone, because this is where many of the traders are likely to tap into millions of customers. And with the African Continental Free Trade Area, you do realize that there is huge potential for many businesses within the East African region to expand and grow. She mentioned that several bottlenecks have led to difficulties in business, and they need to be leveraged in order to allow and enable smooth business within the African continent. Now, the East African Community Region integration is rhetoric and non-practical, according to Angelina Ngalula, who is the chairperson of the East African Business Council. Her concerns are reinforced by the executive director of the East African Business Council, that is John Bosco, who highlighted some key areas that need crucial improvement, especially amongst the private sector players. Now, in an engagement with the board and management of the Uganda Manufacturers Association, the East African Business Council further emphasized on the element of private players and private sector partnerships, because that will spur economic growth and expansion. But not only that, it will lead to more collaboration, and it will change the kind of mindset that many of our business players in the country and within the region have towards business growth, and also increasing the demand of the business perspective and the demand of the business commodities and services offered from within the East African community. Now, besides that, when you look at intra-regional trade that is within East Africa, it is standing at 15%, and that is not something you would wish for a region that has the potential of growing even bigger. Now, the East African community is built on principle of people-centeredness and private sector leadership. Above all, integration and ensuring that bilateral relations is one of the key things that are supposed to be looked at as a unity for the East African community. And away from that, we now sum up the business update this morning by looking at the Forex updates to see how various currencies have been faring on the exchange. Looking at the US dollar opening time on Wednesday, the US dollar was buying at 3,761.13 shillings while selling at 3,771.13 shillings. And by midday, the US dollar was buying at 3,743.42 shillings while selling at 3,753.42 shillings. And then closing time saw the US dollar buy at 3,745.75 shillings and selling at 3,755.75 shillings. The Great Britain pound was buying at 4,773.20 shillings while selling at 4,785.95 shillings. The euro was buying at 4,023.68 shillings whilst selling at 4,034.9.42 shillings. And then looking at the Kenyan shilling was buying at 28.98 shillings while selling at 29.05 shillings. The Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.43 shillings while selling at 1.4 shillings. The South African rand was buying at 201.74 shillings while selling at 202.28 shillings. So that's how you will find the various currencies faring on the exchange. That is courtesy of the Bank of Uganda. Well, that does it for our business updates this morning. I'll be back on Monday to give you more details from the world of business. But keep it UBC, because on Saturday at 8 p.m. to 8:30, from 8:30 to 9 p.m. we bring to you the business roundup, a roundup of business reports making headlines. And this time around, we shall be having a huge focus on the national budget, and its reading does happen this afternoon. But that aside, keep it Good Morning Uganda, because Chantal Oliver Kandinda is right here to give you more details from the traffic updates. Stick around.
The traffic updates this morning, as you are trying to see how to get your way to town, we'll try as much as possible to give you the different routes that you can use or how we are standing on the different routes. My name is Chantal Oliver Kandinda. Welcome aboard. Let's see how we can maneuver through Kampala Jam together. Now, if you are using the Bwaise roundabout, trying to connect to Namungona, you will be finding a bit of a hold up as you're trying to exit the roundabout on your way going to Namungona side. But if you are coming from Namungona, everything is relatively okay. You are safe to move, so that is nothing for you to worry about. And even then, if you are exiting, shortly after exiting that very roundabout, everything is okay. Now, at the Bwaise roundabout still, if you are trying to join Sir Apollo Kagwa Road, you will be finding a lot of traffic on that road until you reach the crossover or the junction that has Namfobambi Road. That is why you'll be leaving the traffic. However, from the roundabout to join the road, there is a lot of traffic, and you could spend some good minutes on there. It is relatively busy. Now, if you are trying to join Makere Kavule Road, you will be finding a lot of traffic and slow movement along that road. But then after, you will be finding no trouble, especially after you've crossed the part that has Mari stops. Now, after Mari stops, you will be finding no traffic until you get to the roundabout that brings you from Gayaza Road, that also continues onto Bombo Road. and that is why you will be finding a lot of traffic. But short of that, you are safe to move. But if you are coming from Boise side, there is a lot of traffic trying to join the roundabout. But if you are exiting the roundabout trying to continue to Boise, you are actually okay to move. There is just slow movement, but after that you will be fine to move. But if you are approaching the roundabout coming to Boise, you will be finding a lot of traffic on there. Now let's get back and see how someone who is trying to join Bombo Road can know where they are standing. Joining the roundabout, if you're coming from Makere Kavule side, there is a lot of traffic. From Gayaza Road, I should say you should be expecting this kind of traffic. However, this very traffic is just as you are closing into the roundabout. If you are exiting onto Gayaza Kampala Road, you'll be just having slow movement, but after that the road is clear for you to move. But Gayaza Road, if you are coming to this very roundabout, just a small space that has no traffic, but if you're closing into the roundabout, too much traffic. Now, if you are now getting the Kubidi roundabout, the one that they also call the Mortuary roundabout, the one also known as the Kakande roundabout, that is where you will be finding traffic on there. Now, if you're coming from Dwayo Road, there is a bit of slow movement, but deep inside also there is some traffic in there, so you might want to brace yourself for it. Now, if you are trying to get to what we call the Mulago roundabout, this is where you will be finding lots and lots of traffic if you are coming from Dwailo Road side. And now also, if you're trying to use the shortcut that connects you to Wandegear side, there is slow movement, and usually because people try to use that route, but you'll be finding a lot of traffic. Now, Bombo Road is mad with traffic as you're trying to get to Wandegear side. There is a lot of traffic and slow movement in there until you get to the Wandegear lights. You will still be finding traffic. If you are continuing onto Bombo Road, after you've crossed over the light, you are safe to move. Wandegear Road also, when you cross over, is safe for you to move. Buganda Road is relatively okay. You are safe to move, just slow movement in there. Queensland, Lumumba Avenue, all safe. Nakasero Road is also safe. Akibua Road seems safe for you to also move. The only time you will be finding a bit of traffic is if you're trying, after the Ministry of Public Service, and you're trying to join the road that proceeds to Akibua, you'll be finding some traffic. And if you're also coming from Chira Road, there is a lot of traffic. And if you're joining the Mulago roundabout, but also if you're trying to get to Yusufulele Road, you are safe to move. I would say traffic is not as bad at the moment, but I cannot guarantee that in the next 15-20 minutes, there will be no traffic on some of those roads. So if you can move and use those routes right now, I would highly recommend that. And that leads us to the end of our traffic updates this morning. Thank you for sticking around. Good Morning Uganda agenda is up next, and you know we are discussing the budget that is going to be read to us this very same day. 72 trillion Uganda shillings is what we are looking at in today's budget reading. Coming up, Olive Monica Najuma. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years. Out of the blue,
the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000. Or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21# and select daily, or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
My name is Atube Richard, a member of a group called Kanyope, located in Bungatira sub-county. This group started in 2008, but the Prelnol project started supporting us in 2009. The project has offered us training on farming, and the training we got has helped us immensely. We used to farm in a traditional way, planting a variety of crops. But when the team from Prelnor approached us, they asked us to choose particular seeds to grow which can yield very well in our area. We chose groundnuts and rice, which we are growing. With this kind of farming, the project also taught us how to sell as a group after finding a market. The support from the project has been so good to us.
Juko.
Yo.
Wachiko. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Uganda, haven't you heard of the parish development model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
107.3 Kampala, 96.9 Mbale, 95.7 Jinja, 98.6 Soroti. You are all covered.
UBC Mtego. UBC Mtego.
Taking care of your bones is like giving your body a solid foundation for a healthy and active life. And now, let's dive into practical advice that you can easily weave into your daily routine, ensuring your bones stay strong and support you every step of the way. Number 1, adequate calcium intake. Calcium is crucial for bone health. Include calcium-rich foods in your diet, such as dairy products, leafy green vegetables, tofu, and fortified foods. If needed, consider calcium supplements, but consult with your healthcare provider first. Number 2, vitamin D. Vitamin D is necessary for the absorption of calcium. Spend time outdoors to get natural sunlight and include vitamin D-rich foods in your diet, such as fatty fish, egg yolks, and fortified foods. If necessary, your healthcare provider may recommend vitamin D supplements. Number 3, regular weight-bearing exercise. Engage in weight-bearing exercises like walking, jogging, dancing, or strength training. These activities help stimulate bone formation and maintain bone density. Number 4, quit smoking. Smoking has been linked to lower bone density and an increased risk of fractures. Quitting smoking is beneficial for overall health, including bone health. Number 5, limit alcohol consumption. Excessive alcohol consumption can negatively impact bone health. If you drink alcohol, do so in moderation. The recommended limit is 1 drink per day for women and 2 drinks or less per day for men. Number 6, Maintain a healthy body weight. Being underweight can contribute to bone loss, so it's important to maintain a healthy body weight. However, extreme dieting or excessive weight loss can also be detrimental to bone health, so aim for a balanced approach. Number 7, bone density testing. Discuss with your healthcare provider if you should have a bone density test to assess your risk for osteoporosis. The results can help guide interventions to prevent bone loss. Number 8, monitor medications. Some medications, such as certain steroids and certain anticonvulsants, can affect bone health. If you are on long-term medication, discuss potential effects on bone density with your healthcare provider. Number 9, balance and fall prevention. Take steps to prevent falls, as fractures can significantly impact bone health. This includes maintaining a clutter-free home, using handrails, wearing appropriate footwear, and addressing any issues with balance. Number 10, healthy diet. Ensure a well-balanced diet that includes an adequate intake of nutrients essential for bone health, such as magnesium, phosphorus, vitamin K, and vitamin C. Your bones support you every day. Now, it's time to give them the care they deserve. As you embark on this journey, know that a commitment to bone health is a gift to your future self, a promise of strength, resilience, and a life well lived. Thanks for joining us today. This program is produced by Sani Productions, powered by UBC TV, inspiring Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Welcome to the agenda segment. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, and our conversation regarding the budget reading continues. But this time round, I'm joined by Pascal Mohanji, who is an economist at the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, also known as CISBAG. And together, we look into what to expect from the budget reading today. We have a 72 trillion budget that is on our hands, and it is going to be launched today for the financial year 2024-2025. But you need to know that the financial year 2023-2024 still goes on up until the 30th of June 2024, and then on 1st July we will now launch into the new budget. But that budget is being launched today at the Kololo Independence Grounds. Well, you're welcome, Pascal, to Good Morning Uganda.
Thank you for hosting me. Good morning.
Well, now, Pascal, conversations around the budget have been ongoing. Even us here at Good Morning Uganda, we have been on one part excited, on one part concerned about some of the numbers and the allocations in the budget for the year 2024-25. But before we even look at the numbers, what lessons can be picked from the current budget, the one for 2023-2024, going forward?
The current budget, 2023-2024,
yes,
52.7 trillion budget. That's what was approved towards the end of the last financial year. And currently, through supplementary budgeting, it has clocked almost 60 trillion.
Yes.
There was a 7 trillion supplementary budget. So you can see we started with 52, now we are at 60. The budget has been growing over time. But overall, I think the budget performance is doing well. By end of the third quarter, around March, Minister of Finance already released about 46 trillion. That was 88.6% of the budget. So by end of the third quarter, if you had 88 performance, that is very good. In this current quarter, Minister of Finance also sent out 7.6 trillion. So I think by the time we end the financial year,
in a few days,
yes, the entire money for the budget will be raised. My concern is not about supplementary budgeting.
Yes.
over and over again, we keep getting supplementary budgets. Actually, they keep on growing. A few years back, we used to have supplementary budgets of about 2-3 trillion. Right now, we are doing about 7 trillion, and the financial is still ongoing. And some of this money comes at the tail end of the financial year. You find you have supplementary budgets being approved in May. When will that money be spent? So some of the lessons that can be learned is how can government plan better, because a supplementary means that sometimes have not planned better. When you look at the money being used for supplementary, some of it is salaries, some of it is something you can foresee. So in the next financial year, the solution that can be learned is we can pick from the mistakes we have done in this financial year and improve. I don't expect us to have another 7 trillion supplementary budget in the coming financial year. Why? First of all, the budget has grown by 37% from 52 to 72. And if we again see a supplementary budget of 7 trillion, we may end up with 80-something trillion, which may put a strain on the economy. Yeah, so performance, very good. Supplementary budgets, not very good.
Not
so
very
those
good.
are some of the lessons that we can pick from the current financial year, and moving forward, we improve on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now that we are here, the budget was already approved, and today we already know the numbers,
True.
but still officially it has to be launched by the Minister of Finance. So looking at that, and given the fact that a big chunk of the budget is going to be geared towards debt financing. So here the question is, what are the potential impacts of the budget on Uganda's debt sustainability, and how can the government ensure that there is responsible borrowing and debt management, because that seems to be our major problem?
First of all, you said we know the numbers, but I can't forget to emphasize the numbers.
Please go ahead and emphasize the numbers.
55%. Revenue is consisting, is going to finance 45%. That is revenue, domestic revenue, non-tax revenue. That means the bigger percentage is going to come from borrowing. And the biggest part of that percentage, about 19 trillion, is domestic debt refinancing. And for me, I've always had an issue on domestic debt refinancing. That is debt rollover. It has grown from 8 trillion to 19-point-something trillion. That is more than 100% growth. That is the money. You know, when you have a debt, you have a loan in the bank today, and you're supposed to pay today. You fail and say, no, I'm going to pay tomorrow. The more you keep on pushing the debt up front, you're creating issues for the next generation. Because current financial year, we have 8. Next financial year, we have 19. Who knows what is going to happen in the coming financial years? Maybe we shall reach a point when the entire budget is debt rollover, because the rate at which it is growing is scaring. Also, the kind of borrowing, budget support, project support. Currently, budget support is at 2%. The contribution of budget support into the budget is at 2%. Project support is 12%. But for me, from my understanding,
and
we should have
when
the
you
reverse.
say, when you say, before you even finish that, when you say budget support and project support, what exactly do you mean?
Now, I was coming to that, and that's why it is a concern to me.
Yes.
Because budget support, and the reason it is 2%, this is mostly non-concessional borrowing. Money from World Bank, money from multilateral lenders like China. In most cases, that money is coming at a very low interest rate and very long payment periods. That is the good loans that the government should be getting, but we are getting only 2%. Project support, in most cases, these are concessional borrowing, where you're borrowing at 10%, 16%, and for a short payment period. Now, if you have concessional borrowing increasing, and if you have non-concessional borrowing increasing, and then you have concessional borrowing reducing, because you are seeing it declining to 2% of the budget, and then budget support growing to 12%. That is a risk, because that means the government is likely to increase borrowing from commercial banks, but also increase borrowing from domestic market, which also poses a risk to the private sector, because the more you borrow domestically, the more you compete with the business people. And you know, banks are funny. If there is government on one side and there is a business person on the other side, they will first borrow to the government because the government cannot default it. The risk of borrowing to government is very low.
And so also the appetite for bigger loans
and the appetite
is
for
bigger for
loans.
government.
Yeah. So it poses a very huge risk both to the private sector, to government itself, and to the future. Because if the debt is not sustainable, then the debt has grown for, in 2018 we had a debt of about 30 trillion. Right now the debt is, according to OAG, is 97 trillion. That is more than 100% growth. So with that trend, it causes a lot of worry. Some benchmarks are like domestic debt to revenue, interest payments to revenue is now at 16%. The benchmark for Ministry of Finance is 12.5%. So you can already see we are already surpassing our own benchmarks that we set for debt sustainability. Because Ministry of Finance is saying that domestic interest payments to revenue, the money you pay in form of interest vis-a-vis how much you collect in revenue domestically should not exceed a ratio of 12.5%. Right now we are at 16%.
16%.
The benchmarks for IMF, the threshold, debt to GDP ratio should be 50%. That's your debt should not exceed 50% of your GDP. Right now, it grew up to 53%. I think now it is coming down, but that alone shows you there are issues with debt sustainability, and there is a high risk that Uganda may become unsustainable in terms of debt, or may enter into a debt distress. And it has a financing risk also, because if your debt keeps on growing and your payments, you cannot finance your debt very well, then you can no longer get more debt. That means the people giving you money see you as a huge risk. Actually, Uganda has been downgraded from B3 to B2. That is Moody's ranking. It ranks countries according to debt sustainability and the risk of financing the debt. Now, Uganda was downgraded in May from B3 to B2. That is very bad because it sends a bad signal to the people that have been
giving us money. Yes.
First of all, they can refuse to give us money, but when they give us money, they give us at a higher interest.
And this time round, the terms and conditions are even tougher.
The terms and the conditions become tougher. That's why you see government sometimes coming back and borrowing from commercial banks, borrowing from money lenders, because the other side where you have good loans, the non-constitutional, the constitutional borrowing, the money is no longer there. That's why you see budget support declining to 2%, project support increasing.
So now, with all of this put in mind, how do we now ensure responsible borrowing and debt management?
How do we ensure responsible borrowing? I think even before we think of responsible borrowing, how do we use the money? How do we use the money that we borrow? Because that is the starting point. Sometimes we have debts growing because we are not managing the debts that we already have. I'll give you an example. The money that government spends in commitment fees is unheard of. Commitment fees is when you go and borrow, you go to Stanbic and say, sorry to use an example of a commercial bank. You say, I want a loan in June. You sign the contract, you're supposed to pick the money in June. But because you maybe have not done enough preparation on your side, you don't pick the money. But for you to ensure that the loan stays there, I start paying commitment that, no, I still want this loan, and prove that I want it, I'll be paying you 1 million per month. Those are commitment fees.
So in addition to us paying fines for not using money in the right space of time it's been given, we are also spending money on commitment fees because we are not ready to take the loan. Wow.
There is this project, the Ginger Express. That one was approved, I think, 2 years ago. But up to this day, no single coin has been drawn from that facility. And we pay commitment fees every year on that facility.
And that is in the budget allocation as well?
And that is in the budget. If you read the Auditor General's report, there is a lot of money being paid in commitment fees. There are project overruns. You borrow to finance a project for 5 years. The project goes to 7 years. Now,
I saw that with not the expressway, with the northern bypass.
Yes, that's a good example. Now, those extra years, that money you're using should have been used to pay back the loan. Those are extra costs. So we need to ensure that the money we are borrowing, first of all, even before we start borrowing, are we ready to take on these loans? Because why should you go sign a contract, you're borrowing a lot of money, and then time comes, you cannot draw from the facility. You start paying commitment fees. Two things, it means two things. One, the project that is being delayed, that service is not being delivered. That means the intended beneficiaries are not receiving the service. But also it puts a strain on the public debt, because the more commitment fees you pay, the more it increases your financing obligations, it puts stress on the revenue.
Basically, the more expensive the loan.
It becomes very expensive. So how do we ensure responsible borrowing? We must be very prepared. Before we say we are going to take on this loan, are we ready? Are the contracts, because if you have a government project, it involves a lot of other things before you even get the money. If you're going to construct a road, have you worked on, do you know the right of way? One thing that is doing that road or the Ginger Express is because there is no right of way. People have refused, the compensation is taking a lot of time. So there is need to work on the legal framework that is guiding such things like compensation for people that are going to give up their lands, so that projects are implemented in the time specified for those projects. You don't have cost overruns and you avoid commitment fees.
Okay, so now still looking at the budget that is being launched today, for the financial year 2024-2025. We are looking at what we should expect from this budget. The numbers have been presented, but still there is need for debate on some of them. And my guest here, Pascal Mhanji, who is an economist with the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, says that we need to exercise responsible borrowing by being prepared. Before we go ahead to ask for loans, are we prepared to use the loans? Is our house in order before we go out there to say, now I need money? For instance, if you're constructing a house and you know that you don't have enough money to put a roof on it, have you already constructed it to the level of roofing before you go to get the loan? Or you're still at the foundation, or the foundation is not there yet, and then you go to any commercial bank and you say, you know what, I need a loan for roofing. I think that analogy works, right?
That's a very good one.
Okay, so now let's look at the priority areas and opportunities in this new budget.
Okay, and the opportunities, I've looked at different things, like people that affect everyday person, me and you. I looked at household income. What are some of these things in the budget that are going to impact household income? The first thing is PDM. Government is allocating 1.77 trillion to the PDM. That is money that is going to the grassroots, down to the parishes. People have issues with PDM, but for me, I like PDM for one thing, that it sends money to the grassroots. Instead of money being stuck here in Kampala, rotating around offices, if it is to be misused, let it be misused at the grassroots.
At the grassroots.
It will do something there, at least to support some businesses there.
Yes.
Their thing is about Emioga circles. It has been allocated 100 billion, which is very good. Then 20 billion for teacher circles. Then there is 13 billion for special grants for persons with disabilities. Those are good interventions because they affect people that have been previously left out.
Yes.
When you look at agriculture, there is about 24 billion that has been allocated for breeding, production, and multiplication of animal feed. Then there is 30 billion to support certification and production of seeds. And one of the issues in agriculture has been the issue of seedlings and getting fake seeds, fake inputs. So I hope this 30 billion is going to have an impact on that issue. 60 billion to roll out the ant vaccine. This one has been given to Naro. People from the cattle corridor, you know what is happening with
foot and mouth disease.
Foot and mouth disease, but also the ants that are resistant to vaccines.
Yes.
So maybe this one is going to help. Transport and infrastructure, 1.27 trillion, start construction of the SGR, the standard gauge railway. That has been in talks for a long time. So maybe this time round, we see
it will we are hitting the ground rolling.
Maybe is this 1.27 trillion.
Yes.
3 billion for the construction and upgrade of national roads and bridges. You see what is happening with the other road heading to Guru, the bridge, Karuma.
Yes.
These days
it is being rehabilitated.
Yes. So maybe this budget will aid in that, and that is a very important bridge. 142 billion for Duka, that is district urban and community access roads. These roads that connect villages to the main roads, and those are very important for agriculture and market access. When you look at health services, 57 billion for construction and equipping of the Uganda Heart Institute. That is also, I think that is a good intervention. 38 billion towards infrastructure for the Uganda cancer hospitals. So you see, those are the interventions that will touch every Ugandan. 12 billion for establishment of the regional diagnostic centers in Arua, Mbare, and Marara.
Yes.
So those are also good interventions. Then lastly, education. I think education and health are the most important.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah. 4 billion towards grant aiding of 38 primary schools. You know, there are schools that are primary schools that are grant aided.
Okay.
In terms of UPE, in terms of government coming in support. So if government is supporting primary schools, that is the reason it is called primary is because it is very important. Primary means very important. So
very important.
Government is coming in to invest in that lower education. It is extremely important. The multiplier effect is so high when you invest in such things.
But now when you speak about the investment that is geared towards education, earlier on when we were speaking about the budget, a colleague did say that when you dissect this money that has been allocated to the education sector, you will find that most of it is geared towards construction, you know, erecting buildings and whatnot. And he says that in as much as that is important, and viable for conducive, to create a conducive learning environment, more needs to be done, like more is desired. And he feels that the money is not enough. What would you say about that?
True, the money is not enough, but we also have to appreciate the government for the little they have done.
Yes.
Much as, and the money will never be enough.
Okay,
yeah.
That's a good argument.
Yes.
Yeah, money will never be enough.
Will never be enough, but if we see government is coming out and putting up certain interventions that are targeting certain primary schools, that is very good.
It's a start.
The issue of infrastructure versus, you know, those are the hard things. How about the soft investments? You know, the issue of growth versus development. Because infrastructure, that is growth. But does it lead to development?
Does it?
Now, that is a debate we can have, because growth is necessary for development. You cannot have good education without infrastructure.
Okay.
But infrastructure alone is not enough.
You need the teachers, the salaries, you need the scholastic materials.
Yes, maybe government is first putting up growth, then they will work on the development.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So now, and speaking still about development, how can the budget be used as a tool for economic transformation, and what specific measures would you recommend as an economist to achieve this goal?
A few days back I was in Chimpanzee. I was training local governments on budgeting. And what I told them is that government has so many policies and documents, but the most important is the budget. Because it's the fuel. it enables the implementation of all these other things that we talk about, the policies, the laws and what. And it is a tool that can be used for economic transformation. How? It does two things. It allocates money to different sectors, but also it sends a signal. You know, the budget sends a signal to the private sector and investors on where the government is trying to put the money, and that is where they also put the money.
I see.
Yes. The private sector is very interested in the budget because it is a signal to them. When you see government is investing in infrastructure, now that is a signal to the private sector. So, if the budget is used to invest in areas with a very high multiplier effect, like education, like health, like infrastructure, it can easily be used to transform the economy. The challenge is that sometimes the money is allocated to areas that don't have any multiplier effect or are consumptive in nature. You invest money to special meals and drinks, money to travel abroad. I agree, travel abroad sometimes is important.
Sometimes.
Yeah, because sometimes the minister will go to World Bank to negotiate a deal. That is very important.
And when is it not important?
When you have 70 people going for a UN meeting, escorting one person.
In a convention.
In a convention. That is not very important. But there is when budget is used actually to invest in areas that can have a very high multiplier effect. Invest in UPE, increase the UPE grant, increase the USE grant, increase the money sent to health centers, increase money meant for community access roads.
Yes.
Increase money meant for connectivity. Make sure everywhere in the country there is internet connection. I was in Yumbe. I was also conducting a training. I spent the entire day. I could not access anything
in
Yumbe because I didn't have internet access. I could not communicate with people in Kampala.
And when you talk about digital transformation and also ICT being introduced in schools, but then schools do not have access to internet, then it's more like washing and you put your clothes on the ground to dry.
Yes. So those are areas where government should be investing money so that the budget can transform the economy.
Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense. Wow, conversation regarding the budget reading that is happening today at Kololo Independence Grounds. This is the 2024-2025 financial budget that is going to be launched, and the current budget, which will run till 30th June 2024, is still ongoing. So when we are speaking about the budget, we are not speaking about the current budget. The current budget is ending in a period of about 2 weeks, and then we will embark on the 72 trillion budget. And the business community has been asking the government, okay, you have a 72 trillion budget. How are you going to finance it? Now, we know that URA has a target to collect about 32 trillion locally, and the business community is already up in arms. You saw what happened with EFRIS, and they were saying we are already paying too many taxes, and you're already saying you're going to collect this. Now, we know that there is no country, go to Europe, go to Denmark, go to Sweden, there is no country that has developed without tax collection. But like Mr. Mhanji here put it, he said, taxes are not the problem, but how are we using them? And also, preparation before we get loans. How prepared are we before we get these facilities? I think this is what is bugging the business community.
True. The issue of taxation. And if you look at especially local government taxes, you know, we've been stuck at 287 billion for local government. We have about 135 districts, 10 cities, so many municipalities, but we collect 287 billion from these local governments. I don't know why. That is very small.
Very small. Vis-a-vis the numbers.
Vis-a-vis the numbers. We have been expanding.
Yes.
Every day we create new administration units, a new sub-county, a new district, a new city, but the revenues are not increasing. It bothers me. Again, the other day, when I was also in Chiriandongo on Friday conducting a training. Chiriandongo collects 167 million in a financial year. Those are
167
million.
That feels like a drop in the ocean.
It's not even a drop. It's not a.
It's a mustard seed.
That is so small. You wonder what is happening down there. I don't know. Chimpanzee is doing well. 600 million. I think Chiriandongo is on a highway. I don't know why. But
they have good road
there
network.
Should be a discussion about the local government revenue.
Yes.
I don't know who's going to do it, maybe Minister of Finance, but there is need to increase local government revenue. So they have introduced IRAS, and where it has worked, it has done wonders.
Yes.
There is Rograve. Those are tax collection systems that have been put up.
Yes.
But still, the revenue is not growing, even at the national level. You saw the business community was up in arms because of e-freeze.
Yes.
And that shows you that shows you what people are, how people look at taxes. The URA government is trying to tax more the people that are already being taxed.
Exactly.
You, the salary earner, when they want to increase tax, they first look at you before. I think the discussion should be about expanding
the tax base. Yes.
Instead of deepening. If you have been taxing Muhanji, now the coming year you increase the taxes on fuel. That is the same Muhanji.
Yes.
The following year increase taxes on fuel. That is me again. You broaden.
And you're looking at one aspect. So you're here, Muhanji, you have pay as you earn that you pay.
Sure.
Then every good you purchase from a supermarket has VAT.
18%.
The fuel that you're buying has taxes levied against it. Even the rent you're paying, the landlord is increasing it because now there is rental tax.
True.
And he also has property tax. And at the end of the day, do you feel like it's the end user that is struggling and the budget is not favoring them in a way?
I think the way the tax is designed currently, the end user, the people that are currently being taxed, they keep paying more taxes, and the people that are not paying taxes. They are very good businesses. The cattle business is a very good business, and it makes a lot of money. And I think that's why Chimpanzee collects a lot of money in revenue.
Because
there is a lot of business regarding cattle.
But are they paying taxes?
What I saw, they were doing better than at least the 3 districts I was in last week. They were collecting 600.
Okay.
Chiriandongo 100. Dokoro was collecting about 200.
Do we know that the taxes, the money that is being collected is from the cattle ranches therein or not?
That is my assumption, because I don't see any other explanation.
Because there has been the argument that those in the cattle business are actually not paying taxes compared to the end user who is buying the milk and the meats. Yes.
Those are some areas that the government can look into and try to expand the tax base, because the budget has increased by 37%.
Yes.
If we don't look into areas where we can collect more money without hurting
the people that are already paying the taxes.
Then we're going to have challenges. We're going to have challenges of debt sustainability, because that means if we don't collect revenue, we're going to borrow.
Okay, now let's look at transparency. There was a report last week which showed that as far as transparency is concerned, the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development scored around 15%. And speaking to various Ugandans, many thought that the budget process is for the government, and they were not concerned with the results of the budget. So how can the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development promote transparency, accountability, and citizen participation in the budgeting process?
First of all, I want to commend Minister of Finance. Previously, and the word previously is highlighted and involved.
Yes.
They have been doing well in terms of budget transparency. Starting from the word go, when the budget process starts in August, they have been involving the people because there are consultative meetings right from the parish At a parish level, that is where the budget starts. They have a parish meeting. There is a sub-county conference, there is a district budget conference, there is the regional consultative meetings. Even here in Kampala, there is a national conference. There is the budget website. So if anyone wants information about the budget, you can easily get it. And what you referred to, that Uganda was ranked the best in East Africa.
The open budget survey,
yes.
We scored 59 points.
Yes.
But when it came to involvement of the public, we were scored poorly.
True, because now when it reaches like at national level, like Parliament, it starts becoming a secret. Have you ever seen the budget framework paper for Parliament? Parliament itself.
What does it look like?
Parliament itself.
Parliament itself.
Yes.
What does it look like?
Parliament also has a budget.
Yes,
but have you ever looked at the budget for Parliament?
I'm curious to know, what does the budget for Parliament look like?
I've never looked at it.
It's not open?
It's not open.
Okay.
It's not open for discussion. I've looked at budgets for ministries, agencies, but the budget for Parliament itself, I've never looked at it.
Oh, now that's a bit chaotic.
Yes.
Because these are the same people that appropriate money
Yes.
to different sectors and ministries, but we don't know how they're spending
Their own
their
budget
own
is
money.
a secret.
Interesting.
It is not discussed anywhere.
So at what point do we just get to know about the supplementary budgets?
We just get to know about the supplementary budgets.
Interesting.
So I think that is an issue that needs to be improved. But also the process for the next budget has been also chaotic, as you said. We saw last-minute changes. You know, in the national budget framework paper, the budget was 52 trillion.
Yes.
Then it increased to 58. We said, yeah, okay, it's okay, 58. Now, a few hours to the approval of the budget, there was a 14 trillion agenda raising the budget to 72 trillion. Now, you know, a agenda is a correction. That's what it means, that you're presenting this document, but you have realized there is an error. You are coming to correct that error. A 14 trillion error?
14 trillion error.
That is so huge. That simply tells you it was deliberate, and also the timing.
The timing.
You wait until the last minute. So I wonder, Parliament never had time to look at the 14 trillion. What is it going to do? And you know, there is a criteria for approving a agenda, and I looked at it yesterday. Let me, what is the criteria? First of all, it shouldn't introduce new things into the budget.
The corrigenda.
The corrigenda.
You will just be adjusting the numbers.
It is a correction.
So if I had allocated 14 trillion or billion here, then I'm just adjusting that, not introducing new things. New things means you forgot.
New things means you forgot. It should be an addendum.
Okay.
But a agenda, you're introducing new items in the budget.
So you see, yesterday the PSST Ramadan Gori did say that members of parliament over the years have been playing or tinkering, if I'm to borrow from his vocabulary, that they have been tinkering with the national budget. And probably that's how we ended up with a corrigenda that now has new items on the budget.
But 14 trillion.
It's a lot. Anyway, Mr. Mhanje, what are your parting shots as we launch into this budget and face the music with 72 trillion?
My parting shots, we already have the budget. Now it is upon us to emphasize or practice fiscal discipline. This coming budget, we should not see issues of corruption. We have had a lot of corruption. We should not see issues of supplementary budgeting. We have had a lot of it.
We have a corrigenda with new items.
We have a corrigenda with new items. But also, the community, people out there, this budget is ours. It is our responsibility to track and monitor our budget. If you know your sub-county has been allocated 50 million, follow up. It was meant to do this certain road. Follow up, monitor service delivery, and give feedback to government. I think that's the best the community can do to ensure that this budget is transparent enough.
All right, you should ensure that you're part of the budgeting process. This budget concerns you and I, because at the end of the day, who is the government budgeting for? They're budgeting for Ugandans. So we all have to be concerned with the numbers. And like Mr. Mhanji said, follow up and see that there is proper service delivery. And I like what Ugandans are doing lately. They are holding leaders, members of parliament accountable. Social media has become a tool that has been used to see that members of parliament and even other government officials that have been tinkering with the budget. Now, you see, we have 3 members of parliament that were arraigned yesterday and remanded over corruption. And guess what? It was because they asked for a 20% bribe on the money that was supposed to be allocated to the Human Rights Commission. So if you hold your leaders accountable, we will be seeing results like this. The national budget will be launched today at Kololo Independence Grounds. So be sure to tune in to Uganda Broadcasting Corporation and listen to the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Matia Kasaija, as he presents the budget. My name is Olive. Good Morning Uganda continues.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by. You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call